And we are back for our daily college basketball best bets here on Monday, March 9th. We conclude the final week of the conference tournaments. This time next week, we will know the 68 team bracket and we'll be fully aware of the NCAA tournament, the NIT, the College Basketball Crown, and the CBI. So this is the final week of, I guess, again, conference tournaments and regular season / postseason action before we officially get into the madness. Now, folks, before we get into the video today, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for some more daily college basketball best bets here on the channel. Later today on the channel, we're going to have our NBA best bet, so make sure to join us later in the day for that. And on Greedo Plays MMA, our UFC Fight Night Emmett versus Viejos. Full card predictions again on Greedo Plays MMA. That's going to be linked in the description down below. You're not going to want to miss that video over there. Hit that subscribe button down below on Greedo Plays MMA, and obviously subscribe to the channel you're watching this video on as well. Yesterday, we got right back on track. Again, a much needed day. What can I say? A 4-1 day for us. Absolutely needed it. Kick off the day with Lehigh beating Colgate. Shout out to the Mountain Hawks. They're going to get a game at home for the Patriot League Championship after BU obviously hit the game-winning shot yesterday against the Navy midshipmen. Clock operator was not great in that game for the home team, but whatever. We're going to get Lehigh versus BU. That's going to be a phenomenal game in the Patriot League Championship game. I believe it's tomorrow or Wednesday. It's coming up. We'll get to that. It's going to be great. We don't hit on the Horizon League, as Northern Kentucky is probably the best team in the Horizon. Today, they go and play Wright State. They are favored to beat Wright State, as yesterday the Norse beat Green Bay. Northern Kentucky didn't score in the first 8 minutes of the game, so they didn't hit a field goal in the first 8 minutes of the game. They started 0 for 15 from the field, and yet they still won by 20 points and scored 90. So, there. Good for Northern Kentucky. They're going to win the Horizon. That's kind of how I feel about that right now. We'll get to them later in the video. We're not going to do a best bet, but of course, we're going to talk about all the conference tournaments at the end of the video. We finally hit on a Michigan State game, albeit we cover by half a point, but I don't care. That's as good as a win for Michigan State, at least on our end. They go to Ann Arbor and cover. Love the late game fight to not let the Wolverines cover the spread. We will take it. That's a hit there. And then how about Georgia Southern? We'll have more on the Eagles in a little bit, but obviously, as you saw in the thumbnail, yes, we dedicated a thumbnail to the Sun Belt today because obviously it's the championship game. But man, those Georgia Southern Eagles, they don't just cover the 5 points against Marshall. I think that closed at about 3.5. Regardless, Georgia Southern wins outright against the Herd. You gotta love what that team's doing. 5 victories in 5 days. They'll try to make it 6 wins in 6 days later today. Again, we'll get into all of that in just a moment. Again, for our 5 best bets for this Monday set of college basketball. Again, let's do it. Hit that subscribe button down below for more. The first of 5 best bets for today. We kick things off with a 2-leg parlay. We've only done this once before, and we did it, I think it was last Monday, to kick off the conference tournaments. And yeah, it didn't go well for us. We went 1 for 2 on the 2-leg parlay. I don't know. No, it was Wednesday, I think. Regardless, our Tuesday, it was Tuesday. We're going to try again. Okay, we're going to try again today. 2-leg parlay. We have the early game today in the SWAC, obviously in their tournament that begins today between Alcorn State and Alabama State. And the second leg of the parlay involves a matchup in the Horizon League, the semifinal. That's not obviously Northern Kentucky versus Wright State. We've got Detroit Mercy taking on Robert Morris. So obviously the 2-leg parlay for us is going to be both Alabama State and RMU. That should get you to around plus 110 on the odds. I like it. I like it a lot. Let's start with the first leg of the parlay. That's obviously Alabama State. It's the only early game today being played at 11 o'clock. This begins the SWAC tournament. This is the play-in round essentially for the SWAC. They're going to have a game, I think, every single day up until Sunday. I think the SWAC does go all the way to Sunday. So this is the play-in route essentially today. Alabama State versus Alcorn State's the 10-11. And again, at the end of the video, when we go over all the conference tournaments, we'll talk about the 9-12, which is Grambling versus the Delta Devils of Mississippi Valley State. First time, by the way, ever this year that the SWAC's inviting all of their teams, all 12 of them, to their conference tournament. Anyways, though, Alabama State takes on Alcorn State, and this should be an easy feed to start the day. I'm not going to worry about the points because that's the thing. I don't know if I trust Alabama State to cover the points against Alcorn. Alcorn is considerably worse. I know they have the same record. They were both 7-11 in the regular season in the SWAC, but Alabama State is the better basketball team. That's pretty undeniable in my opinion. I just don't want to rely on the Hornets to have to cover points against this Alcorn State Braves squad. These two teams met once in the regular season. Game was at Alabama State, and the Hornets were able to win the game 81-66. Alcorn State's going into this matchup coming off of losing 3 of 4. Their only victory being a 3-point win over the Delta Devils of Mississippi Valley State. Losses to Texas Southern on the road, Prairie View A&M on the road by 21 points, and recently losing at home to Arkansas Pine Bluff 83-49. Sorry, 83-48, even worse. Yikes. Alabama State has lost back-to-back games going into this one, but it's a Southern loss and a Grambling loss. Southern at mid-team in the conference. Actually, they're somehow the 2 seed. I just think of them as mid, and obviously, you're looking at their final game versus Grambling. Grambling, another somewhat low-level team, but you know what? Again, Alabama State's better than Alcorn. Let me just get that point across right now. Alabama State 7-11 in the SWAC this year, but again, I do believe they are the considerably better team compared to Alcorn State. A lot of Alabama State's losses are competitive and they are able to score. While you look at Alcorn's L's, usually they're getting their head beat in a lot of their L's. Alabama State led this year in scoring by Ashawn Anderson. Anderson averaging 14.5 points per game this season. Is only coming off a 5-point performance in the Grambling matchup. He's seen his minutes kind of get cut recently. Micah Simpson's been a pretty good scorer for this team for most of the year, averaging 14 points per game, just put up 15 in the Grambling matchup. And there's Tyler Bird, who averages 10 points per game as well for these Hornets. Again, you're not going to see one specific player on this team break out and give you a lot of buckets. It's a team effort, but they are a much higher scoring team compared, let me say, to Alcorn State, who, again, struggles to get out the 50s in some of their games. They're just not a great scoring team. This game is on ESPN Plus, and a lot of the SWAC obviously is not on ESPN Plus. It's usually on SWAC TV, which is free. They have their own app, which is completely free to use, and you just you log into the app and you watch the games. But apparently this one is going to be on ESPN Plus. I think as last year their tournament was as well. But Alcorn, again, just not a high-scoring team. One of these squads that really just struggle to get anything going offensively. Tyson McDaniels leads them in scoring this year, as McDaniels averages 12 points per game for the Braves. A 6'8 junior out of Columbus, Georgia. He's had some big games recently. 29 points against Mississippi Valley State, 26 against Texas Southern, 25 against Jackson State. The problem is nobody else on the team scores. You see their second leading scorer in Shane Lancaster, who gets a lot of shots, just doesn't hit him. I mean, this guy's going to take 12 shots per game, and he's been shooting around 16% in his last few matchups. So that's a real concern if you are Alcorn State, and that's why I do believe the Hornets should win the basketball game. Again, I'm not asking the Hornets to cover any points. I don't want to worry about that. I will just go straight money line for Alabama State for the first leg of the parlay, and the second leg of the parlay, obviously now, is Robert Morris versus Detroit Mercy. RMU currently a 4.5-point favorite. Again, I don't want to involve myself on those points. I will take RMU outright to win the game. Around minus 190-ish, minus 180-ish currently for the Colonials. It's a matchup they should win. I appreciate what Detroit Mercy's done this season. Obviously, like the Green Bay Phoenix, and even to a bigger extent than Green Bay, it feels like Detroit Mercy has completely changed around their program. I mean, don't forget, just 2 years ago, this team was 0-26 at one point. They are the worst team in college basketball. You'd argue they were even worse than the Delta Devils of Mississippi Valley State. Detroit Mercy this season finishes third in their conference, 6-14 record, and a 12-8 record in the Horizon. And now they find themselves 2 games away from the NCAA tournament. Obviously, right, we talked about the Norse advancing to play Wright State today in Indianapolis, and obviously the other game in this bracket is RMU versus Detroit Mercy. In the first round, the Titans were able to dispatch of Milwaukee as Detroit Mercy won the game 84-63. I would say Robert Morris, even though they were playing a 9 seed, was playing the considerably harder matchup against a Youngstown State Penguins team that can really catch fire. Yes, they're a much better team at Youngstown, but regardless, Robert Morris is able to defeat and obviously eliminate the Penguins from the 2025-2026 season, now ultimately getting us to this matchup. RMU has way more talent than Detroit Mercy, first of all. They just do. These two teams played twice in the regular season, and RMU won both games. In Detroit, they were able to win 85-77, and then in Moon Township, Pennsylvania, they were able to win 73-62. RMU right now, I believe, has to be... Are they the favorites to win this thing? It might legitimately be Northern Kentucky right now. I didn't think NKU was that good. They went on the road and beat Oakland in the first round, obviously, and they beat Green Bay and completely dominated the matchup. The second half was all the Norse, and obviously they've dealt with injury problems throughout the season, and now NKU's officially healthy, and they're playing great basketball, and today they are favored to beat the number 1 seed in Wright State, so we'll see again who eventually wins this thing, but it's got to be either RMU or Northern Kentucky who's favored to win the entire thing. Why RMU? Well, they have not lost a game in a minute. Their last loss came to the Dons, or the Mastodons, surprisingly, of Purdue Fort Wayne, but that's dating all the way back to January 31st. They did not lose a single game in the month of February, and again, now it is, I believe, 9 consecutive victories for RMU going into the tournament. They beat Youngstown in the first round, which again is a good team that can catch fire and get hot at any moment. RMU survives. They win the game by 15 points at home, and now they get Detroit Mercy. I believe the lights are going to be a little bit too bright for the Titans in this spot. Yes, they won their first round matchup at home. Now you got to go neutral site in Indianapolis against an RMU team that, is used to playing in big spots in the Horizon League tournament. Last year, obviously, right, winning the Horizon, they beat Youngstown in the championship game last year. It's a little bit of a different format, I understand, this year, but they're used to this spot. They've been prepared for this spot. Don't forget last year, they took Alabama somewhat down to the wire. They were always trailing, but I mean, ultimately, they lost the game 90-81 last year to the Crimson Tide. Different personnel, sure, this year, but I mean, I like RMU a lot in this spot. Watch out for Ryan Prather, Deshaun Good. Those guys averaged 16 and 15 respectively. Good's had a great season. Detroit Mercy led in scoring by TJ Nadeau and Orlando Lovejoy. Lovejoy averaging 15, Nadeau averaging 14. Again, there's some really good players on that Detroit Mercy team as well, but I gotta go here with Robert Morris winning this game. They've won 9 games in a row for a reason. I do believe it's going to be 10 with this win over Detroit Mercy. And again, I'm not going to involve myself on the points on these two. We're going to take straight money lines for both. 2-leg parlay getting us to plus 110 to kick off the day. Well, kick off and end the day. This is a day-long parlay. What can I say? Because first game of the day, for us at least, is Alabama State versus Alcorn. And the final game for us will be this matchup in the Horizon, obviously, between RMU and Detroit Mercy. But either way, we're going to take the 2-leg parlay at plus 110 to kick us off. Okay, on to the second of our 5 best bets for today. We go now to the CAA. Campbell versus Monmouth in Washington, D.C. at the Care First Arena. My goodness, a wrench has been thrown into the Coastal Athletic Tournament. This thing just shit hit the fan in the CAA. What can I say, right? Yesterday, some unbelievable results. I mean, the 3 teams that were most likely to win this thing lose yesterday. Number 1, UNC Wilmington. The Seahawks have been dominant all year long in the CAA, and now, well, they're going to end up in the NIT. I can only hope UNC Wilmington's going to get home games in the NIT. They're so extremely difficult to beat in Wilmington, North Carolina. I don't think they're going to get a regional, though. They should get one home game, I hope, at UNCW. We shall see. But obviously, they are now NIT bound. They lose yesterday to the Campbell Fighting Camels, as the Camels were able to beat by far the best team in this conference, 85-70. The other top team, Charleston, preseason favorites, get blown out by Tyler Tejada and Townsend. It's not close. The Tigers win the game 81-56 against Charleston, who, again, we knew all year long was very fraudulent. We've been saying that for a while, but great victory for the Tigers, winning the game 81-56. And then William & Mary, who, yes, was still a 6 seed, was one of the top teams to win this entire thing because of the fact they had beaten UNC Wilmington twice this year, once in Virginia, once at UNCW. They get blown out against the pride of Hofstra yesterday, losing the game 92-61. And now our Final Four in the CAA is a 9 versus 4 matchup here in Campbell and Monmouth, and a 7 versus 3 in Townsend and Hofstra. Obviously, the one result we did not talk about was the expected result, and that was Monmouth beating Drexel. It was a 65-57 finish. It's a typical Monmouth game. They hit their big shots when they need to. They stay out in front for most of the game, and they just control the pace of play throughout. So a great victory for Monmouth, and now they get a red-hot Campbell Fighting Camels team that has won back-to-back games in this tournament, beating Stony Brook, in which they scored 96 points, winning 96-89, and then yesterday against UNCW. I will say today is where the run ends. Monmouth is going to eliminate and end the run of the Campbell Fighting Camels. Monmouth is going to slow the game down. They're going to make Campbell play their game. And again, Campbell's just not a team anymore that's going to be flying under the radar. Monmouth is completely ready for this matchup. They played a low-scoring affair yesterday against the Dragons of Drexel. They will be ready for Campbell tonight. I very much believe so. These two teams only met once in the regular season, and it was a victory for Campbell. Or no, they met twice, They split this season. Campbell lost their game at home, and Monmouth lost their game at home as well. The game in Bowie's Creek, North Carolina, was a victory for Monmouth as they won 88-73, and the game at Monmouth was a 68-65 victory for Campbell. So oddly enough, Monmouth won the game that was a little bit more high-paced, and Campbell won the slower-paced defensive matchup. However, today, I don't really see that happening. I do believe it's going to be a slower pace matchup. I think, Monmouth should be able to play their game, as this team has now won 4 consecutive games dating back to their win against Stony Brook. Stony Brook, Elon, Northeastern, and now Drexel is the winning streak for this Monmouth team, and I like them enough in this spot. I love the defense that this team plays. They are going to attack the basket. They've got guys who can shoot. As you'll see, Justin Ray and Jason Rivera-Torres is an active shooter as well as a willing shooter as well, I should say. But I just think this team's more talented than Campbell, and I respect what the Fighting Camels have done up until this point. Again, it's a difficult feat to be the number 1 seed in your tournament, let alone UNCW, who I thought, again, was one of the more clear-cut favorites to at least go to their championship game. Again, we were still undecided if they could get past the Tribe, which we thought was going to happen, a William & Mary UNC Wilmington final, but obviously now both those teams have been eliminated. I think Monmouth, again, ends the run tonight. Campbell has played great basketball, do not get me wrong. It's a style of play thing. It's just whoever establishes their style of play is going to win. Campbell's going to try to speed the game up. Monmouth is going to try to slow the game down. I got to imagine Campbell is going to, again, find their opportunities. I just don't know against a team like this defensively if they're going to see that much success. That's ultimately what it comes down to. DJ Smith and Jeremiah Jackson and Dovis Budka have had great seasons for the Camels this year. DJ Smith is a senior 5'11 point guard, just put up 20 in the victory against UNCW, averaged 19 points per game in the season in his 5th year of collegiate ball, had 2 years at Little Rock, played a year at Bowling Green, then was at RMU last year at Moon Township. Now, final year in college basketball, one can assume at Campbell. He's been great. Jeremiah Johnson, sophomore out of Oklahoma, was at Green Bay last year, started for the Phoenix, came on over to Campbell. He's put up 20 and 17 in back-to-back tournament games for the Fighting Camels. And then there's their Lithuanian big in Dovydas Budka, who's put up 15 and 14 in back-to-back games in the tournament. And he's put up double-digit points in their last 8 games, averaging 14 per game this season, coming on over from the Pepperdine Wave over in Malibu last year. Campbell's got a bunch of guys who can score, and again, they have completely fallen under the radar because, well, they didn't have a great regular season. They went 8-10. Prior to the tournament, they had lost 3 games in a row before beating NCANT in their regular season finale, which, again, was expected because it's NCANT. Before obviously winning back-to-back games in the tourney over both Stony Brook and UNC Dub, where they scored 96 and 85 points in back-to-back games. Got to give this team all the respect in the world. The problem, again, though, they're done flying under the radar. I mean, again, Monmouth is completely aware of who they are playing tonight. And if you look at the course of their year for the most part for Campbell, at least their recent losses, they all follow the same script. They're games where Campbell cannot get in sync offensively, they can't get flowing offensively, and they're losing these crappy low-scoring games. UNCW beat them back in the regular season at Bowie's Creek, 73-68. They lost to Drexel on the road, 65-60. They lost at Townsend, 71-67. And I get it. Drexel plays slow. Townsend plays slow. UNCW at their best can play really great defensive basketball. That's what Monmouth is going to try to do tonight. And I think they're going to be successful. I really believe so. I think Monmouth is going to win this game. I'd argue this team's probably going to win the entire thing now. I mean, they've got Cavion McLean back. McLean obviously was out for like 3 months this year. Senior player, point guard, who played at Aberdeen Christian, then Texas Southern, now at Monmouth. He's been injured for most of the year, came back a couple weeks ago. He's going to play the entire game. He may not have the biggest scoring output. He's going to facilitate the offense. He's like a watered down version of Jeremy Fears, if that's how you want to put it. I mean, again, Monmouth is completely in sync and they are, moving the ball when Cavion McLean's in the court. Jason Rivera-Torres has been the best player all year long for the Hawks. 6'7" junior out of the Bronx, averages 16 points per game. He put up 14 in the Drexel victory. Justin Ray is their shooter. Rivera-Torres actually led them in scoring against the Dragons with just 14 points. He had 14 and 8, but I like Monmouth here. I think we get a lower scoring game. And again, it's been cool for Campbell, for the Camels. Campbell, switched, I mixed them. It's been cool for the Fighting Camels. I just think the run ends here. Again, they're done flying under the radar. Monmouth knows what they're getting today. I mean, and if you're Monmouth too, you must be ecstatic. You thought you were going to play UNCW, a team that had beaten you already this season. They only played once, but a team that had already beaten you this year. They were supposed to be, again, the dominant team in this conference that won the CAA last year. And all of a sudden, you get to skip out on that to play Campbell? a team that sure you split with this season, but a much more manageable spot against a 9 seed in the tournament that, again, beat Stony Brook, but okay. And yeah, you beat UNCW. As long as Monmouth actually puts a hand in the face of Campbell and they disrupt the offensive flow of the Camels, I don't see how Monmouth wouldn't be able to win this basketball game. I love the Hawks here. I know they've played some really tight games throughout the course of the season, but for the most part, they specialize in winning those low-scoring games. And again, if you had told me at the beginning of this tournament that Monmouth was going to be in the CAA championship game, I would have laughed at you. But legitimately, I believe we're going to get Monmouth and Hofstra now in the championship matchup. We'll talk a little bit about Townsend and Hofstra at the end of the video, but I'm going Monmouth here. I'm going to take the Hawks. They are favored at -120, and we're going to take them to survive and advance Hawks to the CAA championship game, defeating the Campbell Fighting Camels in DC. We move on now to our third best bet of the video, and we go to the SoCon championship game as the Furman Paladins take on the East Tennessee State Buccaneers. Winners obviously automatically qualify into the NCAA tournament. We've got the 1-seeded Buccaneers taking on the 5-seeded Paladins, if I'm not mistaken. Sorry, the 6-seeded Paladins in the SoCon championship game. How did we get to this point? Well, again, ETSU, best team in the SoCon all year long. They've been dominant. We, from the jump, thought this team was going to be able to win the entire thing. In the first round of the tourney, their first round, they beat the Citadel. It was the 1 versus 9 matchup. ETSU wins the game 83-76. Maybe a little bit closer than we would have liked, but they win. Second round matchup, they get West Carolina. It's a 2-point victory yesterday for ETSU, winning it 69-67. That's their road to the championship. Furman, a 6 seed, had to take on the 3-seeded Samford in the first round. They were able to win the game by 5 points. And yesterday, like we thought, they beat UNCG by 6. So here we are. Actually, that game, regardless, we knew that game was going to be close. Furman, ETSU today, again, the 1 versus 6 matchup in the championship game. I know it's been a great run for the Paladins so far, but we got to rely on the best team in the conference. And the team that's been consistently the best team in the conference so far, obviously, in ETSU. We need to rely on their ability to just go out and win one game when it matters. I don't want to put too much into what happened in the regular season because, again, it is just different in the postseason, as we've seen, obviously, through the Sun Belt with Georgia Southern. Now, they're just beating everybody now, and they're just a different team, obviously, come March than they were in the regular season. And you can maybe make that case about the Paladins, even though their run hasn't been the most difficult, we can say. But anyways, in the regular season, ETSU did sweep Furman. They won the first game 75-71 at East Tennessee State. Second matchup at Furman was a 78-69 victory for the Buccaneers. ETSU, again, consistently has been the best team in the SoCon. They have been favored to win the SoCon for quite a while up until this point, and I'm surprised they're not bigger favorites. I believe it has to be because of the way Furman's been playing recently. Back-to-back games in which they score 80-plus points. Again, 86 against Samford, 81 against UNC Greensboro. They have won 4 out of their last 5 games going into this contest. But guys, we just got to rely on the best team in the SoCon to win. That's the simplest way I can put it. We can break down players and matchups, and I will in a second. We'll talk about individual players for both teams. But this ultimately comes down to the simple point. ETSU's been projected to win this thing for months at this point. They came into this tournament projected to win the entire thing. If we get -130 for ETSU to win the tournament, I'm going to take it. I mean, they could have been playing anybody at this point in the tournament. They could have been playing Mercer. They could have been playing Wofford. They could have been playing Samford. We would have taken ETSU in this spot. They're the best team in the SoCon. They should prove it tonight. I know, again, these games have been close against Citadel and West Carolina, but it's the ability to close games out and win. I mean, that game yesterday against West Carolina was a struggle. The Catamounts are winning according to ESPN, 92% of the game, the Catamounts are winning. ETSU is trailing at halftime by 14 points. They are trailing by 8 points with 5 minutes to go. They're trailing by 4 points with 50 seconds to go, and they find a way to come back and win the game 69-67. They hit a massive three-pointer, it was an and one, take a 1-point lead. They hit another free throw later in the game. They win the game by 2. It's the ability to close games hot, and it's the ability to come back in games and just find ways to win. That's ultimately what it comes down to. You can't teach that. You can't, again, statistically, do you love a 2-point victory against a 15-16 West Carolina Catamounts team? No. But it's the ability to find ways to win. Citadel game, you would have liked a more dominant performance, I would guess. I mean, again, that game, you can look at the final score. It's a 7-point win for the Buccaneers. there's not a moment in that game where they're trailing, I think, other than the first basket of the game, I believe. I think it's the only time Citadel led. No, sorry, I thought Citadel hit the first basket. It happened one moment late in the first half. Citadel never led in the second half of that basketball game. Yeah, ETSU wins it by 7, but they control it. They dominate it. Furman's look good. They've got out and they scored a lot of points so far in this tourney. Who have they played, though? You play Samford, who it was a fraudulent 3 seed, let's just be honest. Okay, I know they had a big winning streak at a point, but I never thought Samford was that great. And you beat UNC Greensboro, who we've watched this season. They're a one-man team. It's just Justin Neely and nothing else. They had the capability of upsetting a top seed, and that's what they did against Wofford. They were capable of doing it. But obviously in one game, a team like Furman would be able to beat them. And obviously that's what happened. So I'm not too concerned about Furman's victories so far. They have not played a team like East Tennessee State. They have not played a team defensively like East Tennessee State in the tournament. In the regular season, again, it was a clean sweep for the Buccaneers. Why would that change? Why would it change? Just because they've played some close games so far? I don't think Furman's that great that, they can just overcome it now. The game's going to be close, but East Tennessee's going to win. It's going to be, SoCon championship games historically have always been really low scoring. This is going to be, and that does favor the better team in ETSU, the better defensive team in ETSU. This final score is going to be 66-61, my guess. And that's kind of high scoring legitimately for SoCon title games. We've had some really memorable moments in SoCon title games. Obviously, nothing defeats that matchup played, was it 2 seasons ago, between Chattanooga and, goodness, I'm blanking. It was Chattanooga and, it was West Carolina, I think. Was it West Carolina? No, it was Furman. I'm pretty sure it was Furman. I'm like 90% sure it was Furman losing that game to Chattanooga. Regardless, though, right, the buzzer beater against Chattanooga, I think it was them. Was it not? I could be wrong. Again, Chattanooga won the game. Regardless, SoCon championship games are known for being somewhat low scoring. Last year, again, it was Chattanooga versus Furman in the championship game. That one was a little more higher scoring, obviously, than usual. But I guess, how many years ago was that? That was 4 years ago that happened when Chattanooga had the game winner? Oh, I felt like it was recently. Regardless, I think ETSU wins this basketball game. This team is well equipped to win it. Scoring-wise, you're looking at Blake Barkley, who averages 14.5, Brian Taylor averages 14.5, and Cam Morris III averages 14 points per game. Barkley has been the best scorer so far in the tournament. For ETSU, he dropped 24 against the Citadel, 19 against the Catamounts of West Carolina. Brian Taylor just dropped 22 against West Carolina as well, and Cam Morris III has been pretty non-existent in this tournament. He was their third leading scorer throughout the year. Senior forward for this team, he scored 3 and 1 points in 20-plus minutes in back-to-back games. Regardless, though, there's enough scoring going around for the Buccaneers. Furman led in scoring this year by Alex Wilkins. Wilkins averaging 17.5 points per game. Cooper Bowser averages 13.5 as well, but again, Wilkins is their star freshman who just dropped 34 against UNC Greensboro just yesterday. Again, though, I just think the run comes to an end. It's just one of those things. Again, it's one individual game. Your entire season's on the line. I mean, technically, I guess for East Tennessee State, they have an auto bid to the NIT coming up if they aren't able to beat the Paladins today. But again, one game, season on the line, NCAA tournament on the line. Are we going to rely on Furman or East Tennessee State? I'm going to rely on the team that's been best in the conference all year long, the favorites to win the conference all year long, and the team that's already won both matchups played this season, and also, again, the better defensive team out of these two. I'm going Eastern Tennessee State to win. It's going to be a lower scoring game, my guess. Again, 66-61 range of points in this game. I'm going with the Buccaneers to win the SoCon Conference, obviously advancing to the NCAA tournament. Give me the Buccaneers, who, again, we've expected all year long to win this thing, minus 130 over the 6-seeded Furman Paladins. On to our 4th best bet of the video. We've been waiting for it. Oh man, the Sun Belt tournament this year has just been cinema. I legitimately think this has been the best tournament so far in college basketball, at least for this cycle. Obviously, we have still yet to see any of the power conferences play, and the SWAC and the MEAC, so don't forget. And obviously, again, we've got a lot of tournament action this week still. But the Sun Belt tourney concludes today. And what a ride it has been, but Georgia Southern has been the story. I'd argue Georgia Southern has been the story of all of college basketball over the last 7 days. Well, 5 days, as Georgia Southern has pieced together 5 wins in 5 days dating back to Wednesday, where they were able to beat Old Dominion when they entered the tournament, beating ODU 88-84. They then beat Arkansas State 80-77, and again, this has been the gauntlet side of the Sun Belt tourney, the tougher side 100%. They beat Ark State 80-77. They beat South Alabama 94-85. They then beat the Chanticleers of Coastal Carolina 96-72. And yesterday, they win a lower, comparatively speaking to their other games, a lower scoring game against Marshall 82-78. They outlast the Thundering Herd. And here we go. Georgia Southern has found their way into the championship game. Again, we thought Southern Miss was going to meet them here just because we kind of just locked into the point, well, these two teams are just the teams of destiny in the SBC this season, but obviously the number 1 seeded Troy Trojans prevailed, and yes, I know this Troy team is a whole nother animal. We've known how good this team is. This team is better than everybody else in the conference. There's a reason they are the number 1 seed, and obviously we saw the huge 6-way tie for second place, 6-way tie for second place in the Sun Belt. You know who wasn't involved in that? It was the Troy Trojans, because they had a game on everybody else. And albeit it's just one game, as again, that 7-way tie or whatnot was all teams that were 11-7, and Troy just had one more game on everyone at 12-6. But again, the Trojans have been looked at as the best team by far in the Sun Belt this season. But here you go. 5 wins in 5 days. Georgia Southern has extended their season one more day. Do they just have the legs to push one more? That's the question. Do they have it in them to win one more game on a 6th consecutive night? The answer to that question, I believe, is yes. I think Georgia Southern's going to win. But again, like yesterday, we're going to take the points. We're going to take the points. Again, I want to watch Georgia Southern in the tournament. I want to see them go dancing in March. I would love to, later in March, obviously. I'd love to see them in the field of 68. I think it would be phenomenal. But we're going to take the points to be safe. We're going to choose caution over being aggressive and taking this team to win the game outright at plus 175. I think being given 5.5 points here is phenomenal. The last time these two teams played, and the only time these two teams played this season, was at Georgia Southern. It was exactly a 5-point victory for Troy. So if we get an exact replica of that initial matchup, then yeah, we would cover, obviously, with Georgia Southern. But this is what I will say. That Georgia Southern team that was playing in January against Troy is not even close to what they are now. I mean, it is unbelievable what they have put together in this tournament, and winning yesterday in Marshall against Marshall in the fashion in which they did, I don't think you can write it any better for this team. You can't. I mean, okay, that first half, Georgia Southern gets out to a hot start, and you're thinking, wow, they're going to outpace and outpush this Thundering Herd team like they've done to everybody so far that's entered this tournament against them. But then Marshall closes the gap. You come into this, Georgia Southern has a 7-point lead coming out of halftime. Marshall cuts that lead, takes a lead. And Marshall has the lead for most of that second half. Until, 3 minutes to go, Georgia Southern goes on a little bit of a run. It's back and forth. Marshall's winning with a minute to go. And Georgia Southern makes big shot after big shot. Easy lay-ins or contested lay-ins. And the Eagles win the game 82-78. In a game where they did not shoot well. We've talked about what the Eagles have done all tournament long. They have relied on their 3-point shooting. They've relied on their fast-paced offense. They tried against Marshall. Marshall was matching them, and the shots just weren't falling for the Eagles. We've seen games already in this tournament where they have taken 40, and I'm not joking, 40-plus 3-pointers. They took 45 threes in one game in this tournament. They had a game where they shot all but, I think it was 5 3-pointers in the entire game. They took 5 2-pointers. They shot 20% from beyond the arc, 25%, give or take, from beyond the arc against Marshall yesterday. Exactly 27%. They shot 7 for 26 from beyond the arc, and they still found a way to win. They started attacking the basket. They started drawing foul calls. And what the most important thing, I believe, was from this game was the offensive rebounds. The amount of second chance opportunities this team got, 18 offensive rebounds for Georgia Southern, 6 rebounds out of Andres Burney. Burney was just phenomenal. The senior out of Brundage, Alaska was Brundage, Alabama, not Alaska, was the winner for this. He was the guy for this team. He averages 4 points per game this year. He put up 12 and 11. He wins the game for the Eagles. Spud Webb steps up in a huge spot. He's been their best and leading scorer all year long. Has taken a step back in this tournament to both Alden Applewhite and Tyron Moore. Spud Webb scores 31 points. Tyron Moore has already broken the Sun Belt Conference tournament record for most points scored in a single tourney. He's obviously going to extend that by even more points tonight with another game. This is a guy who scored 40 against Coastal Carolina. This is a guy who scored 25 against Ark State, 23 against South Alabama. He scored 11 against Marshall. He was non-existent in the game. Tyron Moore plays 36 minutes. He goes 3 for 13 from the field, 1 for 6 from beyond the arc, shoots 60% from the free throw line. He did not have a good game, and his team still found a way to win without the guy who has single-handedly put them on his back throughout the tournament. I mean, if that doesn't show you how good the overall team is, I don't know what does. Because again, your best guy does not show up in a semifinal game, but yet the team picks him up and finds a way to still win. And I'm telling you, it's those offensive rebounds out of Bernie. It's Spud Webb taking over and scoring 31 points. It's that offensive glass. They find a way to beat Marshall yet again. They did it in Huntington, West Virginia earlier in the year, actually the final game of the regular season. And the Eagles eliminate the Thundering Herd in the semifinals. Now they turn their attention to Troy, who, yes, has been the best team in the Sun Belt all year long. If you remember, this team went to San Diego State and beat the Aztecs in Vallejos. They won 108-107. They went to Gallon and played USC and only lost by 1 point in a double overtime game, 107-106. They played tough and competitive games all year long. But if you want to try to run against this team, I think Georgia Southern's going to beat them. I'd expect Troy to try to slow the game down because that's what you want to do. You would think against Georgia Southern, but here's another point. Marshall at halftime and coming out of halftime, the announcers for the Sun Belt semifinal game kept on saying, we got to imagine Marshall. And Marshall said they want to speed this game up. They want to make this difficult for Georgia Southern to keep up because they've played now 5 games in 5 days. They tried, they were unsuccessful. Sure, Georgia Southern wasn't finding those shots weren't falling like they were earlier in the tournament, but they still find a way to win. So tread lightly, I would say, and tread with caution if you're Troy to play fast, because do you want to play fast against this team who's matched every team that they've played so far? And yes, this is 6 games in 6 days, but anything can happen in March, man. And, Troy's victory against Southern Miss, it's a good win. Southern Miss, again, was on a phenomenal run in this tournament. They were attacking the paint like no other going into that game. That Troy holds Tyleik Weeks to only 15 points. They win the game 78-70. Okay, it's a different monster at Georgia Southern. It is. It is a different monster. And we haven't seen, again, the high-scoring nature of Troy recently. We saw that in the non-conference schedule. We didn't entirely see that in the Sun Belt. Won the first game against Georgia Southern, the only game against Georgia Southern in Statesboro, Georgia, by 5 points, 83-78. I just don't think they're ready for this version of Georgia Southern tonight, and that's the truth. I'm going Georgia Southern on the points, plus 5.5 for the Eagles. I think they will try to speed this game up. There's some good players in Troy. Victor Valdez averages 15. Thomas Dowd averages 15. Theo Sang averages 13. Cooper Campbell as well, averaging 13 points per game. And we'll see again that big matchup between Dowd and obviously Bernie for the Southern Eagles. I can't pick against Georgia Southern right now, especially if they're getting points, which they are. So I'm going to go Georgia Southern to cover, plus 5.5 for the Eagles in the Sun Belt Championship game. I personally believe they're going to win. That's neither here or there. Georgia Southern plus 5.5 against the Troy Trojans. On to our final best bet of the video. It's the biggest spread we're going to see all day long, but I actually think there's value in it. I don't love taking these, but here I will. Gonzaga is going to beat Oregon State by 30 points. That's the truth. That's what I firmly believe right now. Good on Oregon State for finding a way to beat USF. They're losing 11-0 to start that game. I'm thinking, okay, again, you can never, count a team out ever. I mean, we were 8 minutes into the game. I think it was like 6 minutes into the game. But, Oregon State comes back. They're down 11-0 to start against San Francisco. They come back, win the game ultimately by 1 point, 78-77. So great victory for Oregon State for coming back and winning that one. An interesting 4th place finish, I will say. Oregon State's already fired their head coach, but I believe he's still coaching right now. He's going to finish out the season, but they told him he's not going to come back next year when Oregon State re-enters the Pacific 12. Oregon State found themselves as the 4 seed in the WCC tournament somehow. They do feel like somewhat of a fraudulent 4 seed, but here they are, and I guess they defended their spot in the standings and in the bracket as they were able to defeat and eliminate the San Francisco Dons. So we get now what we kind of thought, 1 versus 4 and 2 versus 3 in the Final Four of the WCC tourney. And I will talk about St. Mary's and Santa Clara at the end of the video, obviously, when we talk about the tournaments. I just have nothing to say about it now. Obviously, I didn't have a bet for it because I will say this right now. St. Mary's is a 3-point favorite. They should win, but I'll tell you this. that game means so much more to Santa Clara than it does St. Mary's. I think St. Mary's will win because, yes, they want to stick it to Zaga one more time in the championship game, which I cannot wait for tomorrow night. That'll be cinema, assuming it happens. But I just don't know. Santa Clara might put up a real good fight because Santa Clara, it looks like they're in just because everyone in the bubble has sucked except for them, and they beat Pacific yesterday. So, again, the Broncos should be clearly in, and they should skip Dayton. But with they win over St. Mary's, Santa Clara, again, 100% skips Dayton. If you lose, potentially you have to play in the first 4. But I think Santa Clara should be a 10 seed regardless of what happens tonight against a really good St. Mary's Gales team. Anyways, we have the other side of the WCC bracket right now as Gonzaga takes on Oregon State. And I've said it all year long. Zaga is massively overrated. They are. But in a tournament, in the WCC tournament, in their last WCC tournament, they're not going to let a team, they're going to join them in the Pac-12 next season, but they're not going to let a team like Oregon State stop them. St. Mary's, maybe, because the Gales are just different against Gonzaga. But Oregon State, guys, this is going to be one-way traffic. This is not going to be a competitive basketball game. This is going to be Gonzaga by 25 plus, in my opinion. I just don't think it's close. Oregon State, again, come from behind victory against San Francisco. I got to give them credit for that. High-paced and high-scoring second half. Oregon State, again, wins the game by 1. They were dogs going into that game, and they win it. Again, Josiah Lake scores 18 points. Good for the Beavs for pulling that one out. Isaiah C has a decent game as well. Again, though, against Gonzaga, it is just different. These two teams only played once in the regular season, and the one game was won by Gonzaga. It was in Corvallis, and the Bulldogs were able to win 81-61. Again, in Oregon State, at Oregon State. And now the game's in a neutral site in Vegas, where Gonzaga has historically dominated the WCC. And obviously, right, Oregon State, this is only just their second and last WCC tourney. But yeah, again, it's just Gonzaga. It's just a whole other game. Don't forget last year, Oregon State, I mean, hell, they're already way better than they were last year in the WCC tourney. As they got eliminated in the first round last year. Pepperdine upset them. Well, Oregon State's first round last year as Pepperdine went on their little run with Mo Udom, who's obviously now at ASU. But again, Oregon State has not met a Gonzaga team in the WCC tournament. Again, I'm telling you, they're just different. They are. And the question immediately that I will, ask for Oregon State, how are you stopping Graham Ike tonight? Graham Ike's final WCC tourney, and Graham Ike, the last time they played Oregon State, the Beavs had 0 answers. It was Ike's best game of the season. He's had some good games. The Santa Clara game was really good that he had in Spokane. The game in Corvallis, I mean, efficiency-wise, 35 points, 39 minutes, 13 for 18 from the field, 1 for 1 from beyond the arc, and 8 of 9 from the free throw line. Final stat line, 35 and 7 for Graham Ike. Oregon State has no answers to him. They don't have anyone that can guard Graham Ike. I mean, they're going to try Johan Munch. I believe he got injured in the first matchup. I think he did. But, I mean, still, Ike dominated the minutes that Johan played. What, you're going to double him with Isaiah C? I don't know. It's going to be Johan Munch's assignment. But he played 10 minutes last night, and he's kind of, I don't know, he's been squeezed out a little bit recently out of the rotation. I don't know what they're going to do. They have to play him tonight, obviously, against Ike, but they have problems beyond Graham Ike. Because, again, I have to imagine everything Oregon State has going into this game, because obviously this is their final game of the year. They're probably in line for the crown again this year. Hell, they were in the crown last year after they lost to Pepperdine. They'll probably be back in it again this season. But you got to imagine, again, season on the line, you are not going to let Graham Ike beat you. And if you approach it that way, sure, okay, here comes, and again, it's been a complicated shooting year for the rest of this Gonzaga team, but now you get Tyon Grant Foster, cut into the paint. You get, a Jalen Worley. You get Adam Miller. You get a Mario St. Supri. He's gonna shoot, obviously, but you're going to get just a plethora of guys who are Ike is able to dump the ball off to. I just don't know how Oregon State's going to be able to keep up here. I don't know. Again, good for them for beating San Francisco. This is not even comparable. The two are not comparable games. Oregon State had 93 points dropped on them when they went to the Levy Center in their final regular season game against Santa Clara. Kind of showed you the difference between, the 4 seed in the WCC and the 3 seed in the WCC, as Santa Clara, again, completely dominated in an uncompetitive game. If Santa Clara is able to do that to you, what the hell is Gonzaga going to do to you in the WCC? I know they both play differently. I understand. Two very different teams. But Gonzaga has been able to score and get into the 90s and high 80s against every team that they play. Let's say, again, they're going to score, let's go low 85 points tonight. Do you think Oregon State can score 67 against this team? No. Gonzaga is good defensively. I will say they are overrated. They are. And again, that goes against what I'm saying right now. But yes, for their ranking, as they're supposed to be the number 12 team in the country, yes, they're an overrated team. But against a team like Oregon State, they should still dominate. And again, they were overrated in the regular season. I think, again, they might run into a very tough team in the tournament. They might, because again, Zaga's been stuck playing these WCC teams, and, they've played some good WCC teams, and they've lost St. Mary's. It's the only one that they've lost to all year long other than Portland. But they're going to run into the NCAA tournament, and they're going to run into Tennessee in the second round, and they're going to lose. And this comes from someone who's not a big SEC guy at all, right? So, I don't know. I'm not sold. Braden Huff's still not back, but Ike's played phenomenally. I mean, again, the carry job that Graham Ike has done for this team has just been unbelievable. I don't know. I mean, obviously, I'm not even going to imagine where Gonzaga would be at without Graham Ike this season, but I just don't think Oregon State's able to play a competitive game. I think this is going to be a 20-plus point victory for the Bulldogs. I think the Beavs are really going to struggle to score against this team. I mean, I guess they're going to look towards Josiah Lake. You got to look towards him and see, and I don't know. Yak. No, Yak doesn't really play that much. I don't know who else can score for them other than Lake and C, and that's really just a question the Beavs always ask themselves. Who else is going to get us production other than Josiah Lake and sometimes again Isaiah C? I got to go with the Bulldogs here. This is going to be one-way traffic, one-sided beatdown. Gonzaga wins and advances to their final WCC tournament final, likely where they will see the Gales of St. Mary's. It would just be fitting. I think it has to be, but maybe it is the Santa Clara Broncos. We shall see. I'm going to go Gonzaga covering a monster spread of 18 points. Bulldogs minus 18 to close the night for our best bets. Now, before we end the video, we are going to go over the remaining conference tournaments. There's not many today, obviously, right? Because we're kind of in an in-between spot. Like, yeah, the SWAC starting their tournament today, but for the most part, all of the conference tournaments that haven't started yet start tomorrow, other than the Ivy League, who just plays their 4-team tourney this weekend. It's crazy. But anyways, tomorrow we get a lot started. Like, we have some low-level Big 12 ball at 9 o'clock in the morning tomorrow. I can't wait. It's going to be great. But it's kind of a bridge right now. Most of the tournaments are ending, and, the main ones start tomorrow. But again, we still have, I think, 6 tournaments to go over. I'm not going to go over the championship, games that we already talked about today. So I'm not talking about the Sun Belt. I'm not talking about the SoCon, because we already went over those games. But the other tournaments that we haven't mentioned so far, at least haven't gone into great detail about. Let's start first with the SWAC, everyone's favorite. The SWAC, obviously 2 games today. We already broke down Alabama State and Alcorn State. It was the first leg of our 2-leg parlay, and obviously we took the Hornets of Alabama State. The other game today, Grambling State versus Mississippi Valley State. It should be an easy victory for Grambling. I hope the Delta Devils can come through, but you and I both know that's not going to be a competitive matchup likely. Grambling State locked in for one specific spot. They should be able to win. Again, we faded Grambling quite a bit at the end of the season, especially against the top teams in the conference, but they're playing the Delta Devils. We're not looking at a spread in that game. It does not matter how many points they beat the Delta Devils by. It's win in advance, and they'll do exactly that against the 12-seeded MVSU Delta Devils, who, again, were included for the first time in this tournament because of the expansion. And as you can see here, right, these first 2 rounds didn't exist before this year. Usually this tournament starts on March 11th, and obviously it takes you to Selection Sunday. But this year they added 10, 11, 9, 12. So last year just would have been Prairie View right away against Bethune, and Jackson State against the Rattlers of Florida A&M. But now they have to play play-in rounds. We shall see. Who's going to win this thing? SWAC's wide open. It is every single season. But yeah, the number 1 seed Bethune-Cookman to me is the best team in the tourney. We've watched Bethune-Cookman more than any other team, I believe, this year in the SWAC. Maybe Southern a little bit more. But I've been impressed with this team all season long, and I just don't know who beats them. I think their toughest challenge legitimately might be Alabama A&M. I'll tell you that. I think the Bulldogs might be the second best team in this entire field. They haven't had a dominant regular season, but the way they're playing right now, I might like the Bulldogs against any other team. So that's a potential semifinal matchup between Bethune and Alabama A&M, but obviously that's for the future. Today, I like Alabama State and Grambling State to advance. Next up, the Horizon League. We're down to 4. So yesterday in the 1-game second round, Green Bay is eliminated by the Norse in Northern Kentucky, who obviously are now favored to beat Wright State. And I'll tell you this, they're going to beat Wright State. The way that team shoots, oh boy. Yeah, they're fully healthy. They're completely hot from beyond the arc. They're dangerous. Again, they did not score for the first 8 minutes of the game. They still scored 90 on Green Bay. Yikes. They were down 8-0. They couldn't score. and yet they still ended the first half up by 6 points. And Green Bay's good. Do not get me wrong. I like what Green Bay did this season. I hope they make it to the CBI. Probably not. Wright State, Northern Kentucky. I'm sorry, Wright State. The Norse are going to win this game. Which, again, to us, because we have RMU on the second leg of our parlay, really sets up for an interesting final tomorrow in Indianapolis. Because Northern Kentucky, the way that they're playing against RMU, is probably the hottest team in the tourney. Well, hottest team in the conference. Obviously, Northern Kentucky is the hottest team in the tournament specifically. That's a game. It would be the Norse's third game in 3 days, and that's obviously the disadvantage that they are at for being the 7th seed. But that'll be one hell of a matchup if we do get it tomorrow. It's something that we are predicting, and we shall see, obviously, but that's our projection for now in the horizon. Next up, we go on to the Southland. We are down to 6 in the Southland tournament, as yesterday New Orleans beats Houston Christian like we expected, and obviously like we had on our best bets video, Nichols beats Northwestern State. I told you Northwestern State's horrible and they can't make a layup. Down to 6 now, as here is now the quarterfinals matchups before the big dogs get into play, I guess, with Stephen F. Austin and McNeese. But today we have Texas A&M Corpus Christi taking on New Orleans. About an even money game. I think it's exactly -110 on both sides for those two teams. I'm going to go with the Privateers. I'm not impressed with the Islanders. I've never been. I think New Orleans beat them this season. I think they split the regular season, if I'm not mistaken. I think maybe they played one game and New Orleans won it, but I'm pretty sure the Privateers have beaten Corpus Christi this year. I'm going with New Orleans to advance and take on Stephen F. Austin tomorrow. UT Rio Grande Valley versus Nichols. UT Rio Grande Valley is a 6.5 or 7.5 point favorite today. Okay, the Vaqueros should win by that many points? Huh? I don't know. I thought about putting Nichols spread in the video, but I was like, you know what? Something's probably up. I'm going to go UT Rio Grande Valley. I don't know why they're that big of a favorite. They should win, but again, I hate the spread. So, Final Four for me, New Orleans, Stephen F. Austin, McNeese, and the Vaqueros of UT Rio Grande Valley. Big Sky time. We are down now to 6 in the Big Sky as well, as yesterday the 2-seeded Montana State Bobcats get upset by the home team, the Idaho Vandals. The other home team, Idaho State, loses to the number 1 squad, Jalen Henderson and Portland State, expectedly. So now we're down to 6. The other 2 quarterfinal matchups today are Montana and Northern Colorado. Competitive matchup, I like Chris Denker, though, and UNCO to win. I'm going to go Northern Colorado beating Money Williams and Montana, the preseason favorites. Eastern Washington, Weber State. Odds are kind of close for no reason, I think. It's 3.5 or 3.5 or 2.5 on EWU. I expect Isaiah Moses in Eastern Washington to advance to the semifinals where they get a favorable matchup against Idaho. UNCO versus Portland State is going to be a bloodbath, but I expect still EWU and Portland State in the championship like we've been predicting for quite a bit at this point. Next up, CAA, obviously down to 4. Not going to spend too much time because we already had Monmouth beating Campbell. Townsend versus Hofstra. I'm going to go Hofstra. But again, 50-50 game. I think Hofstra gets it done. I think they're able to play their style. I mean, Hofstra and Townsend kind of do the same things. Townsend, one of the lowest scoring teams in all of college basketball. Hofstra can play that low scoring, slow paced game, and I'd expect the Pride to likely win that one. But I wouldn't bet it, right? But my CAA championship game tomorrow, as of now, obviously Monmouth versus the Pride of Monmouth. And then our final tournament, obviously the WCC. Obviously, we've got Gonzaga dominating and blowing out Oregon State and covering the spread. Other half of the bracket, St. Mary's versus Santa Clara. I'm going St. Mary's. Again, it just feels right that the final WCC conference tournament final tournament in which Gonzaga's present, it just feels right that St. Mary's is that team to play them in the championship game tomorrow. And I can't wait. I hope we get St. Mary's plus 4.5. I really hope we get it. It'll probably be more like 2.5. But I need to see that game one more time this year. I have to. For good time's sake, for old time's sake, and for the WCC, I need to see it. For WCC history, we need that game tomorrow. Again, though, this Santa Clara St. Mary's game means a lot more to the Broncos than it does the Gales. Again, yes, the Gales definitely want to beat Gonzaga for a second time and bump their rankings, or obviously bump their seed up in the NCAA tournament. Santa Clara, again, I think has to be a lock to be in the tourney. I think the win over Pacific yesterday put them in the tournament automatically, but you still don't know. And obviously, they are also playing with the intentions of trying to stay out of Dayton, Ohio for the first 4. Ultimately, I'm going to go St. Mary's to win. I'm not putting this video I'm not putting that game in the best bets, obviously, because I think it's going to be ultra competitive. I think Santa Clara might have St. Mary's down to the wire in that matchup. I'm going with the Gales, though. They have too much talent. I think they win. Mikey Lewis, Morauskas, I got to go with the Gales to win, setting up for a phenomenal championship matchup tomorrow. I cannot wait. It'll be the game of the day likely for us. Gonzaga, St. Mary's, Part 3, like we get almost every single year, one more time. Folks, that'll do it for our best bets here on Monday, March 9th, and of course, our tournament previews. If you have not yet, though, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy the video. Make sure to comment if you disagree with any of the picks. We'll be back tomorrow for more daily college basketball best bets. Folks, thank y'all for watching, and Mamba forever.